I'm not like, oh, everything happens for a reason or it's all good. Like, I can't sell myself on that. So I just go the other way, which is, negative to the point of making myself laugh.
I love that. That is, I remember my mom and I used to fight,
Mhm.
and they got so ridiculous that we ended up laughing. Like, this is so stupid. So I totally get that. It gets so one extreme that you just go the other way because it's just insane. So, what moments do you remember like you had, you went like, down like a rabbit hole and hit rock bottom, and then you were like, I'm going to turn around and make it a bit.
Well, I think because I was already doing stand up at the time. I mean, I have the bit that I used to constantly, and I still do it sometimes, where I just say I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Anybody
Yeah.
else? If you're bipolar and you know it, clap your hands. And then I do like one little, two little, three little lithium. And actually, a lot of the stuff, and actually a lot of my stand up, I did off stage. Like, I did it to a friend joking around, and they're like, "You have to do that on stage." And then I just I wasn't really ready to talk about it, but when you're up there, you just need stuff. And so I just went for it. And I remember doing it and my face just turning red. And because I really didn't want to say it to anybody. And it wasn't as cool then, I have to say. Like, it totally just was not as cool. And so then, so I guess like that would be one. And then just, yeah, I think it's because my friends are all as dark as I am. And I remember being put on this medicine, and like, I'm a notorious klutz. Like I told you, my parents used to call me Gracie as a kid because I'm always walking into things and stumbling and stuff.
No.
So, um, and then I had to be put on this medicine, and the doctor had said it can affect your coordination. And I remember telling my oldest friend about it, who's, also a writer, and she just said, when I said the doctor said it could affect my coordination, she like spit out her beer and she was like, "Well, how would you know?" And so, so yeah, I mean, there's always stuff like that, and yeah, I mean, some things are just so unredeeming that you just have to find whatever works for you.
Absolutely. It's how we view the world, really. It's all about perception. We create our own reality. But you say that I'm positive, but you're positive too, because you're turning all this into something positive, into which is humor and comedy and making
You're
other
ruining my reputation right now.
I know, I'm sorry. But if you think about it, you're coming back to where I am. It's like you
I
go
don't It's purely, any positivity is purely by accident.
by
It's
accident. I love that. I love that. Do you feel like doing stand up has helped you, has helped your mental health?
Oh, I think it yeah, I mean, I can't imagine life without it, you know? I mean, at this point, also, I mean, you do stand up for a certain amount of time, and you're just no longer fit to be around civilians. So, there comes a point where there's no turning back. But
Yeah.
also, my instinct is to be alone. I, very much prefer to be alone. And also, I think it just taught me, forcing myself to be someplace, and, um, and that and that focus is helpful. I mean, you really, when you're on stage, you can't be thinking about a whole lot of other things. There's really only it's just like, just get through this. And then the other thing that it did, that I can never tell if it was a plus or a liability, but I really I didn't want people to feel like they couldn't count on me. Like I said, like, there was a stigma around it, and I really didn't want anyone to know. And then I let that sort of, but of course they knew because I was talking about it on stage.
Yeah.
But then, of course, there were times where I was like really down the rabbit hole. which is also when I'm at my most self-conscious, and so what I do is, like, I'm not saying anything to anyone, like, didn't build in an excuse, like, it made it so that I had to perform to the level where I always am. I couldn't just be like, "Oh, well, I'm not up to it today." It was just like, "Nope, you have to show up no matter what."
That's
So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, the show must go on. And do you feel like mental health now is becoming more openly discussed, right? So
Yeah.
do you feel like comedy maybe contributed to reducing the stigma around depression and mental health issues in general?
Yeah, sure, I'll take credit for it. Yeah.
Gary Goldman, right?
Right. Gary Goldman, yeah.
Yes, Gary Goldman. Yeah, very funny. Very, very
Yeah.
funny. So I feel like people like him and you really contributed to um, the stigma being a little bit less than before. Because when you talk about things openly, like narcissistic abuse, right, which is one of the
Yeah.
things that we're familiar with, when you talk about it more openly and there's videos about it out there and people are discussing it and talking about it, then it's like, oh, I don't feel so weird that I went through that experience, because sometimes there's a lot of shame attached to, having a mental health issue or being in a narcissistic abusive relationship.
Mhm.
So do you feel like audiences are more receptive to what you have to say nowadays?
Well, now I have to be honest, like, there's sometimes a bit of a bummer of, like, "Hey, I had it first."
Like, I set the trend. I talked about it way
Right,
when it wasn't hip.
and
Yeah.
now everybody's and I was just like and so, like, I was able to get all the jokes to work, but I just didn't really wanna be talking about it, and actually, I've been really avoidant of I'm fine on doing shows for certain groups, recovery groups are like amazing. And,
Yes,
um,
they are.
so I'm okay doing all of those things, but certainly when I've done reality TV, they want me to talk about it. And I don't mind talking about it like in just a general way, but they want the story of like it's my struggle. And I still have a little bit of that thing up of like, no, whatever the struggle is, that's mine and it's precious. And I
Yeah.
don't necessarily want to reveal everything. Um, and I used to get really especially when I did colleges, college students would come up, and I would start to get really nervous of, like, I don't wanna talk about it, but then I realized how self-absorbed that was of me because they just listened to me, they didn't wanna hear from me, they wanted to share what they were going through. Because I
Exactly.
remember this woman came up to me and I, like, was very, I guess, like, kind of, like, cold to her, and then later I saw her at the bar, and obviously this wasn't a college because there was a bar there, and I just felt really bad, and then when I went up to her, that was what made me realize, like, she just wanted to share her story with somebody who would understand, you
Yes,
know?
100%. It happens here, like on the lives when I talk about narcissistic abuse, or we talk about something, depression or whatever, mental health issues. People do share their stories and they want to just share it with you so that you can give your point of view, or just listen to them.
Right, everybody needs, someone to bear witness or validate, and especially, again, at that time, people were not talking about it, and, but I just never wanted to step forward and be the spokesperson, but that
Right.
has nothing to do with any shame that anyone should feel about it. That was just my own thing. And I always feel like there's a differentiation because there is a difference because sometimes people overshare on that stuff. And I'm not talking about here where it's a platform for those things. I'm just
Yes.
talking about in real life, or social media. And I think like, you don't have to be ashamed of things, but there is something to be said that some things are precious, and
A
they're not for everyone.
Absolutely. Just maybe for your friends, you tell your friends, and you keep it to yourself. Absolutely. I agree with that. There's a level of privacy that you have to have. And you can't just share. I think oversharing is I read that it was related to ADHD oversharing, which I can relate.
Oh, really?
So yes, it was related to that.
Yeah, that seems about
So it seems about right, right? Because we're
mhm.
like all over the place when you're ADHD. So, but I think also another thing that we both share, you don't want to be known as the depression girl. Like, I don't want to be known as the cancer girl
Yep.
because we're so much more than that. And sometimes I think people or not just audiences are actually cool. They don't just, if they engage with you, they know you're more than that, right? But like
Right.
people in general, like if, they see your comedy or they see your books or whatever, they're like, oh, she's the cancer girl. Oh, she's the depression
Right.
girl. And
Yeah.
so that I feel is not fair. And I hope that we get out of that, pigeonholing people.